Thank you for being here. I just want to clarify a few positions before I go into the core of my presentation. And these relate mainly to issues that have been in the public domain, so that there is no doubt as to what the government's position on these matters are. So the first has to do with the issue about the trade. I don't want to call it a dispute because it has not gotten to that stage as yet, but the refusal of entry of dairy products into Trinidad and Tobago from a local exporter. You've seen numerous calls from the private sector recommending a particular course of action to the government of Guyana to address this matter. This is not a new issue, and our position is not a new position. We've always been in the forefront of the fight for the reduction of trade barriers in our region. We believe it's essential to the promotion of wealth and the growth of trade across CARICOM. And so we've had a long-standing, stable position that phytosanitary restrictions must not be used to supplant tariffs, or in this case, because it's a free trade area, so there wouldn't be tariff, but they must not be used to stymie the flow of goods and services across our region. We have had issues with Trinidad and Tobago before. So let me say, going forward, that we will insist upon full reciprocity in matters of trade. That the way our goods and our exports are treated across the region, but in this particular case in Trinidad and Tobago, the same way their goods entering into Guyanese market would be treated. Full reciprocity on all of the issues. Because if they can insist on phytosanitary tests that we don't implement for their goods, but they want to conduct on our goods before they enter into their market, then we will have to deal in the same manner as they're doing with our goods. I'm trying to be a bit careful here because we do not want, we have great relationship with Trinidad and Tobago. We have had a long-standing healthy trade relationship, and we don't want to sound jingoistic or as though we are spoiling for a fight. All we want is that our exports, our goods, be treated fairly in their market as their goods are treated here. I want to urge you to pay attention to the presentation by Minister Vikram Bharat at the 19th UN Forest Forum. He attended that and he made a key presentation there, and it follows our line where we're urging that greater incentives, in a nutshell, be provided for forested countries to ensure that they can protect their forests and still have resources to to outcompete alternate use for the forest. And this is an important pillar of our foreign policy, particularly as it relates to environmental diplomacy. And therefore, you will see a recurrent thread of similar positions taken at various fora. We plan to make a case at the G20 meeting. President Lula said that Ghana would be invited later this year, and I probably will attend that to argue that this could be done in a manner that doesn't burden the world but provides enormous climate benefits to the entire world. And there could be, as I explained earlier, there would be various models from which to choose. Some menu approach to what countries may want to choose. Some may choose a market mechanism for seeing the flow of funds from the sale of forest carbon, and some may want to use public resources, but all designed for the same benefit, which is to preserve forests and recognizing the important role they play in sequestering carbon in our atmosphere, but at the same time allowing the countries to utilize the resources to meet their development needs. So I want to urge you to look at that, because the presentation, often these things don't get enough attention locally, but they're important plank. This position is an important plank of our climate advocacy globally. We anticipate that the 29th UN Conference of Parties in Azerbaijan would be one about climate financing mainly. The success of that conference would revolve around its ability to provide predictable financing for climate objectives, including to support the introduction of renewable energy. So please pay attention to that. The third issue is Starbuck News has this running series from Paul and Figueroa talking about the Public Accounts Committee and how it doesn't meet often enough, and Starbuck News loves to editorialize on this matter. But once before Gail Teixeira debunked all of the lies, and they didn't give it the kind of prominence that it deserved when she made a detailed press release showing how many sessions were held of the Public Accounts Committee, the achievements of the Public Accounts Committee in the current government from 2020 to now, and how the achievement of the Public Accounts Committee, they're far more than the last two sessions of Parliament, that from the Ramatara period and then the Granger era, because in both cases we had an attempt by APNU to avoid scrutiny of their records, and then now they're trying to rush through the scrutiny of their years in office, because those records are now being examined by the Public Accounts Committee. So what we will not tolerate the scanning, the whitewashing of the accounts for that era, the 2015 to 2020 era. We will not allow that, whilst at the same time being mindful that we would we need to move to complete the work. So Gail Teixeira, once again on April 26th, issued a detailed press release. I think it's a statement, press statement by her, outlining all of the achievements and comparing different periods, the 10th Parliament, the 11th Parliament, and the 12th Parliament, about what was achieved by the Public Accounts Committee. And you will see that in the 12th Parliament, which is the current Parliament, how much more has been done than in the past. So this attempt by Mahipal and Figueroa and some of the others to say, oh, we can't get the work done, is just a blatant lie. That's the third thing. On the issue, the press release issued by the Ministry of Finance about the phase 1 of the student loan write-off program. There's one issue there that may convey the wrong impression, so I just wanted to clarify that. I spoke with President Ali just before I came to the press conference, where it said that for people the students to qualify under this program, they have to demonstrate that they've completed their course of study and graduated, and subsequent to graduation were employed or self-employed in Guyana for a minimum of 3 years, as evidenced by a minimum of 156 contributions made to the National Insurance Scheme. So it may convey the impression, if they don't have that evidence, that then they would not be eligible. So a person may be working, they may not have made their contributions to the NIS, a graduate, and be working 3 years here in Guyana, or may have been unemployed, but still in Guyana, not migrated, because if you migrate, that's a different story. But you're still in Guyana, you may have even been unemployed, you would still be eligible for the write-off. So you don't have to provide that evidence of 156 contributions made to the NIS. We want to make this easy for our people who have, I know the students who have outstanding loans. We don't want to put in conditions that will create maybe or minimize the impact of this initiative, which we believe can help a lot of people. So I just wanted to clarify that issue too. I just popped in at the Parliament at the time when Annette Ferguson was making her presentation. So she was all excited about my attendance there. And she said a number of nonsensical things, and many of them were answered by our parliamentarians. But she said something that, oh, we're an oil-producing country now, and maybe we should consider giving out the house lots for free. Now, considering their track record, I don't even want to go to their track record on house lots or housing development. I'll deal with that a little bit later. So, a couple of points she's making. It sounds good, free house lots for everyone because we're oil producing country now. So, if she, not just Annette Ferguson, but APNU were to examine what has happened in this sector, they'd realize how much effort we have put into ensuring that people have the house lots and a home of their own. And this is consistent with our promise. So in our manifesto, we said we want to, in 5 years, do 50,000 house lots. We have completed 33,000 of those, and they're now awarding contracts to complete probably another 7,000 or so, hopefully before the end of the year. So we are on track to doing that, the 50,000 households. We have allocated from 2020 to 2024 about $200 billion for housing development. So put in the infrastructure. So it means roads, often in areas that are, if you go to the back of, say, Grove or the East Bank, these were jungle, basically, overgrown with trees that are 200 feet tall and stuff like that, that we had to cut down there. And build roads, culverts, we have to put in water, electricity, all of that. So if you take $200 billion and you divide about 40,000 house lots, it works out to an average about $5 million to prepare one house lot. We're selling that house lot at a low income end for $92,000, $92,000 to $200,000. So if it's $92,000, we're selling it for 1/40th of the cost. 1/40th of the cost that it takes to prepare the land. 1/40th. So the low income is between $192,000 to $200,000. Middle income between maybe $800,000 to $2 million. So if it's middle income, it's maybe 6 times the cost, or if you're at the upper end, like $2 million, it's still less than half of the cost. And then for the the high income group, the average price is, so it goes from 1 million, and then one area it's 6 million, but the average price is about 3 million. So it's still just about 60%, 50, 60%, 60% of the cost of development, and that's high income. At the lower end, it is 1/40th of the cost. So that's the subsidy that people get, and that's the transfer of wealth to people. Because when they get a plot of land now that is valued a minimum of $5 million, because that's what it takes to prepare the land to get there. Now the $200 billion in the 5 years that we've allocated just for housing development, in the budgets that we've put, 3 years budget where we had oil money, almost all of the oil money, we bring in, including this year, it's $600 billion of oil money that we would spend. So on housing alone, 1/3 of all of the oil money is going to subsidize basically people's housing. And that's only on housing development. I can go to the other sectors. I don't even want to start talking about scholarships or part-time jobs or anything else. Just on one. So people, they don't even analyze these things. Talk a lot of nonsense, emotional things in the parliament. Oh, oil money now, we could give everybody a free house lot and free everything. You still have to do that and run the rest of the country, because you're building roads too, living out those. That's only in the housing area. We've built about 3,000 community roads so far, highways, etc., hospitals, schools, etc. And 1/3 of all of the allocation from all of oil money up to the end of this year, 2024, will be from that sector. I see some of the APNU people. So Gordon Mosley posted something, X amount of money. The report, the minister says we collected X amount of money from the oil sector. And everybody on Gordon Mosley feed, or some of the APNU people saying, oh, more money, these people are wasting the money, etc. Now, only some very ignorant people can say that. I had to explain this to Kiteshore News, that this is not new money. Every time the minister reports to Parliament, every 3 months, it's not new money. It's by virtue of the law that we passed, the reform of the Natural Resources Fund, that we reformed, to say that the minister must report to Parliament on collections for the year. And if he doesn't, every 3 months. If he doesn't, he could go to jail for 10 years. Because we didn't want a repeat of what APNU did when they tried to steal the $18 million and didn't tell us. We didn't even know about it. And so this is not new money. It's already in the budget. The budget says $1.5 billion will come in from oil and gas resources this year. Every time they go and say, 250 million of the 1.5 billion has come in, APNU people say, oh, new money come in, more oil money. It's not a new money. It's the same money that we program at budget time. It's just that we're reporting on its receipt now. And so you have a lot of ignorance out there, particularly in the leadership of APNU. You know, when you have this sort of ignorance there, you have a lot of emotional things concerned. And I just wanted, because I heard her say that sitting there, and I'm thinking, oh, really? If you only had read something, then you would make that kind of statement in the National Assembly of all places. And I hope that they will pay attention to this. A full 1/3 of all the oil money in the years that we've been in office has been dedicated to housing development, subsidized house lots for people of this country, so that they're getting back the oil money, but they're not getting it in cash. They're getting it in a house lot now that cost them $92,000, but is valued at minimum at $5 million or so. So I just wanted to issue these clarifications, because sometimes you see it all the time on these issues. So we've seen APNU now. I think they believe they have to start making promises again. So they said, this is what's coming out now. These are their new propaganda sheets. So I'll buy a coffee for someone here if you tell me what it reminds you of. But President Ali promises benefits to Guyanese by 2030. APNU will deliver in our first 100 days in government significant increases in salaries, pensions, job creation in 100 days, right? You see the 100 days at the corner: job creation, investment opportunities, small business grants, and soft loans. In 100 days, in our first 100 days. You see this here? In their first 100 days, they will do what we're doing now. That is, write off the student loan for UG and give free education in 100 days. In 100 days, they will faster construction of homes with adequate space, etc. Rent assistance, rental. Now, the reason I ask you this, and this, another one, is that you must be familiar with this document too. This was the 2015 document, the first 100 days. This was exactly, it looks almost like very familiar with what they promised in 2015, the first 100 days. So the first 100 days, they took it directly from there. Significant salary increases for government workers, teachers, primary school, etc. civil servants is at the first 100 days. Significant increases in old age pension. Exactly the same thing. They promise in that period waiving of duties on fuel in the first 100 days, tools and small-scale mining equipment brought by identifiably holders of small concessions. 100 days they were supposed to do that in the last government. You know what they actually did to the miners? They increased the royalty rate, they increased the tributers tax, and they put VAT on the machinery and equipment after promising in their manifesto that in the first 100 days they will waive all the taxes they would pay. They then said they would establish a national cane workers and cane farmers conference in the first 100 days. Well, you know what we got? 7,000 sugar workers without a job. Establish of a national rice farmers and rice millers conference. Granger met with the rice farmers and told them, this is private business, you know, don't look forward to any government help. So they didn't have the conference, and he told them that. He said, don't look out for any help from the government. Liberalization of telecoms and ICT sectors. You know, that ended the whole 5 years. They didn't do it. We did that when we got back in office, 3 months after we got back in office. We had left even the legislation for them. In fact, the legislation was already tabled in Parliament. They never did it in the five years, and they promised it in 100 days. So this is the same old worn apno. Same old worn apno. They're putting out these things. Nobody believes anything that they say. Nobody believes anything they say. And they had a lot of help from Kaichor News. Kaichor News too, because there's a pattern. Kaichor News is latching on to them, or they're latching on to Kaichor News. Well, they all cut from the same cloth. So Kaichor News says, PPP election gimmicks. With the time drawing near to the next general election slated for 2025, the People's Progressive Party Civic is rushing to meet its 2020 manifesto promises. At least we are rushing to keep our word. You know, APNU never kept their word. While the government just yesterday announced the write-off for student debt for some 13,000 Guyanese, and they go on. But for 4 years, if you look at everything we promised in our manifesto, the housing, 50,000, we're already on track to deliver that. Scholarships, 20,000 in our manifesto. We already have 28,000 people studying, and another 22,000 through BIT, WIN, and they grow. Those are, their goal is 28,000, and those 3 others are another 22,000 studying, paid for fully by the government of Guyana. We promised free university education in 5 years. We're on course to delivering that. We promised to return the joint services bonus. We returned that immediately. We promised to reverse the taxes, the 200 taxes and fees. We did that in the budget. We promised to remove the corporate tax on education and healthcare. We removed that too. We promised to double old age pension by next year. That will be done in the 5 years. We promised to return the children grant and take it to $50,000. We're on track to doing that. They said we are rushing to do that. But at least our party is rushing to do things for the people of this country and keep our promises. The brothers in arms, you know, the APNU, hasn't done anything. These are the 100 days promises. They could review how many of those 100 days promises were ever done. You remember the good life for all or everyone? I can't even remember. The good life. They used to parade around good life for everyone. So much for APNU promises. Don't believe anything they say. They're gonna come up with this. Now I see a new thing, and it feeds directly back into what I spoke of before. A huge disrespect for Afro-Guyanese from the PNC. So look at Norton. Norton says, in Kaichur News again, accused PPP Civic of paying citizens to stay quiet. So he said that the reason they cannot mobilize people to protest is because PPP is paying their supporters $40,000 the stipend, the part-time job, so that they wouldn't protest. So he can't mobilize protests anymore. We are bribing people, not their supporters, not to protest. Now, considering that there are only 15,000 Guyanese who are benefiting from the part-time job, and not all of them are in APNU stronghold, because in different parts of the country, in different regions, every region practically has part-time workers. So this is not just a lame excuse, it's very disparaging. And long before we even got back into government, they were having a hard time to mobilize people to protest. Even in the 5 months period, they could not get people to come out because APNU supporters saw through the lies that they were telling them when they tried to swear in Granger 3 times. So this is very, very disparaging, that to say that people could be bribed by the PPP, that they're bribed. Not that they got a job that he should be happy for, a part-time job, and that they're studying. But the scholarships they get is a bribe to keep them away from protests. So they're going to upgrade themselves, get a degree or something, but that's a bribe. The contracts that they get is a bribe. The part-time job is a bribe. This is how they view people. When you believe you own someone, that's how you behave. You know, I'm offended now. How dare they take a job or go on to study? This must be a bribe. Ownership. And if you think that is unique to Norton, look at Roysdale Ford. Said, leader hopeful for the People's National Congress reform. Roysdale Ford said a vision is needed to stem deep-seated disinterest among youth in the party, who are, on the other hand, induced by the incumbent People's Progressive Party with trinkets. You know, that is what he's saying. People from the young people from APNU are induced by the PPP, so they're bribable by trinkets from the PPP. So when they get a job, and he goes on to say, they're being enticed by the PPP's handout of cash consort tickets and menial labor contracts. Oh, you want a contract? Come work with me. Come work under 9 of our people to fetch mud out of the trenches. This is the same kind of, this is a low-life kind of thing. Cathy Hughes doesn't have a monopoly over the word low-life or low-life. Roysdale Ford too is a full-fledged low-life for calling people who get a cleaning contract, a menial labor contract. Of course, they can't secure lucrative arrangements through the Gaming Commission. They can't do that. So they have to work for a living. They have to work. They have to fetch things. Because they can't do like extort people through the Gaming Commission and stuff that happened under his tenure there. This is the view they have of Afro-Guyanese. Oh, they're bribable. That's why they would not come and protest for us anymore, because they're busy getting trinkets from the PPP. It runs deep in that party. It runs deep in the party, and we must condemn it. Rather than rather than write about it and glorify it like the Kaichor News is doing. They should have condemned this behavior on their part. That hard-working Guyanese who are looking to get a part-time job or a contract or something else to make a living, upgrade themselves and their family, are being disparaged by these low-life leaders of the PNC. Now, there's a whole view here from the Starbuck News. And as I said before, the editorials often, you don't know who writes them, but clearly there must be a really deep-seated PPP hater in writing these editorials, some of these editorials. So the first one speaks about permanent secretaries, and they said the one permanent or two of the permanent secretaries, Chanel Hussein Autar and May Thomas, were at the PPP's Congress. So first of all, let me make it clear that permanent secretaries are political appointees. They're appointed by the president of the country, not the Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission appoints civil servants, public servants. The ministers and permanent secretaries are appointed by the president of the country. That's in the Constitution of Guyana, and that we didn't put there. Secondly, people are free to practice whichever party, their politics. They're free to belong to a political organization in the country and not be discriminated against because they belong to a particular political party. That's the freedom that we fight for. Freedom, right? The freedom to freely express yourself, a freedom of association that we've always fought for. The question is that when these people perform tasks now in their ministries, whether they do so in a partisan manner, that should be examined. Whether they do like Valda Lawrence and argue, I only want PNC people to work here. You recall that, the famous outburst from Valda Lawrence. You've never seen this with these people. They're consummate professionals. They belong to a political party, but they are technically qualified to. And they operate in a professional manner in their jobs. I thought that the Starbuck News would have looked at the ethnic cleansing that took place after APNU took office, where almost all of the Indo-Guyanese permanent secretaries were removed. Almost all of them. I think there was one for a short period, not the full 5 years. If you look at the composition of permanent secretaries now, you will see that it reflects the makeup of Guyana under this government. People of every race being there. And so we get criticized. Suddenly it's a return of paramountcy of the party. Do they understand what paramountcy? We did not force people to come to our Congress, where in the past the head of the army had to go to the PNC Congress on public servants. The circular would go out to say, we expect you to attend the Congress. We did not force any public servant to go to our Congress. That would have been paramountcy of the party. Not because two persons who are members of this party but have a job in the government, that is paramountcy of the party. It is just a jaundiced kind of analysis. And it's something that we need to all condemn. The second editorial, it's called Binary Worldview. And so they quoted me as saying, during the party congress held last weekend, General Secretary Bharrat Jagdeo was quoted as saying, "We support NGOs. We support them because many perform a useful task, but when they serve as a means of division, when they believe that an unelected few can arrogate to themselves that their voice must be the voice, must be the monopoly voice, and they are the only thing that matter in a democracy, then we will fight that to our very core, because we are a political party that will never allow that to happen." And so that's what I said. And then the sentence that follows here. What that means in practice, that every critic or anyone who adopts a contrary view to one favored by the PPP mainstream is viewed as being aligned to the opposition. Now, when did I say that? What I said is that we support NGOs. We support them fully. But when they believe that their voice is the monopoly voice, that the same things that they argue for, they want tolerance from everyone in society, a plural society, but you have to get their approbation for everything else, for everything in the country. And if you don't go and seek their approbation, then somehow the project must now move forward. You can't have that policy because you didn't get our approval. Then that is something that is unhealthy, and we'll fight it. We're not going to fight their view to express an opinion. It's when they believe that their voice is the monopoly voice. And Stabrook News and everyone in this country should support what a democracy, the key features of a democracy. You present, political parties present their policies when they contest the elections. The people of the country, the electorate, the people of the country choose who they want to run the country for a period, a defined period, 5 years. They expect them to pursue those policies that they present to the electorate. If they don't do that, then they have the right to change the political leaders. They didn't say that we will give you the mandate to pursue these policies, but you must get the APA's approval, or the Ghana Human Rights approval, or Red Thread approval, or the Stabrook News editorial board approval before you conduct these policies. They gave you a mandate to do that, and if you don't do it, then they change you. But here they believe, and that is why the editorial goes on to talk about the president's criticism of the APA. The APA, and I saw a long statement from the APA saying, oh, the president called us political. We're not political. Not that in the 5 years when the head of the APA was the deputy leader of the APNU AFC list, the head of the APA, when in those 5 years, They didn't say a single thing about the 2,000 Amerindians who were fired by APNU. We were the ones fighting it, the People's Progressive Party. They didn't say much when APNU tried to dilute the Indigenous Peoples Commission. And I think they were complicit in this so-called revision of the Amerindian Act, not to strengthen its provisions, but to weaken the provisions of the Amerindian Act, because the key government officials, including in Parliament, government ministers in Parliament, had already made known their position on Amerindian land. If you get more land, you can't get more the oil money. APA stood by when all of these things were happening. Then when the APNU dismantled the Amerindian land titling unit that we had established and left with $10.2 million to continue the demarcation work and the titling of the communities. Where was APA? Where they were in bed with APNU, because the head of the APA at that time, or just before that, was the deputy leader of the list for the APNU AFC. So forgive us if we're so stupid as to link them with the politics. And now, of recent, again, we embark on the sale of forest carbon. We raised $700 million. We decided with the two shows, 15% of it will go directly to the Amerindian communities, and they would still benefit from the other 85%, but 15% would go directly. We came up with a formula approved by the NTC, which is the elected body, a gathering of all the elected bodies, the officials, the two shows, senior councillors, etc., across the whole country. We agreed on the number of villages, 242 villages. We agreed how much money they will get, depending on population size. We allocated $4-point-something billion, $22.5 million to the communities. The villagers had to then decide, in each village, they had to meet and decide how to spend the money, and they had to send us the minutes of that meeting. They had to have a 60% attendance. So that meant the people in the villages wanted the money spent in a particular manner. Guess who wants that ended? APA. We must consult with them. This group that sits in Georgetown, that received over $20 million over the past several years in assistance from abroad, ask them how much money was spent back to do anything in the Amerindian villages apart from holding conferences all the time. They hold conferences, a way of getting the money. So they went to block this deal that brought $22.5 million in the first year to the villages, 242 villages, 811 projects. This year, there's another allocation. That was only the first year's allocation. They went to try to block it. They wrote the art. So they didn't succeed in blocking it. Globally, they mobilized group. After they failed there, they went to the Inter-American Human Rights Commission again to try to block it. What they were trying to block is money going to 242 villages to assist there. So they believe that they're the monopoly voice. We must not consult with the two shows that are all the elected leaders. We must consult with the APA. We must get their approbation. They must tick the box and say, oh, this is free prior informed consent. They didn't get free prior informed consent from the villagers to act on their behalf. We got it when the villagers submitted their minutes as to how to utilize the money. That is what we meant. That is what we're talking about, monopoly behavior. And they believe, so should we not fight that? That is what I said, our Congress will fight it. They never had a mandate from the Amerindian people. They never had a mandate from the electorate, but they want to block an initiative for the development of Amerindians. It's not, as they said, oh, any criticism of the government, we get like thin skin. It's when they try to block development of for our people. The same thing with the red thread leaders now. They're trying to block the gas to energy project. They must have the last say. Not that this would reduce electricity prices by 50% and the project can pay back for itself based on the revenue stream that comes from the sale of the liquid. They're trying to block that. We must get their approval, first of all. This is what we're talking about. So they went on to talk about the Marxism, Leninism, and all of that here. So at the end of the same editorial, so I think I've made a case. This is pure, utter nonsense. They try to paint us as hostile to opposed to people being critical of us. So democratic centralism should not have been retained in the party's constitution, and one cannot help but feel that were it removed, it would open Freedom House to a fresh air of democratic debate, both within the PPP and without, and make it less paranoid about criticism. If we were paranoid about criticism, let me tell you something. You find out if there's any other public official anywhere in this hemisphere who has had more criticism than me. I dare anyone to do that. Every week, and 15 things. I've not had, maybe for the last 15 years of my life, the Kaichor News not saying something bad about me. Every single day. Every single day. They make up stories all the time to do that. I defend Kaichor News to publish their right to publish. Not that I will not rebut what they're saying, but we defend this their right to publish. Nobody harasses the Kaichor News. In fact, people criticize me for being too tolerant and to listen to the nonsense all the time, that they come up with. It's a party organ. So since when we have been thin-skinned to criticism, and that somehow democratic centralism would have changed whether we get criticized less or more. It's pure nonsense, again. So we don't have a binary view of the world. They have a binary view of the world. They believe that somehow this pseudo-intellectual group that forms editorial boards must lecture to the country what policies to pursue. Never mind they got the mandate from the electorate. And these so-called self-appointed intellectuals, unaccountable often in these NGOs, because one common thread, if you check all of them, they're not accountable to anyone for the money that they receive from abroad, etc., that they must have the last say. That is what we will always oppose. And so they have a binary view of the world, not the PPP. So another view of the world is, I'm just skipping some things here. I have too many things to talk about this week. So the Kaichor News got a press conference, Jagdeo got a press conference. No self-respecting Guyanese, no principled Guyanese would declare these as meeting with the press and sharing with the media for disseminating with the rest of Guyana. We at the paper identified the Bharrat Jagdeo press conferences for what they have degraded to press obscenities, press wars, and press custom. Very, very nice. That's one. Attacking the press. PPP government has been notorious for attacking the press, led by Bharrat Jagdeo. Where the big cheese is. Them boys say every week like clockwork, the PPP calling the press for come on line. No, I call you all here for a line. It's the same thing. They have a problem with us responding and exposing the lies. They occupied, the Kaicho News occupied a space in the past. A space where they told outrageous lies about everything under the sun. They fabricated the stories. Glenn Lal, in his half-literate state, would just make up these stories, bully often the reporters, bully the editors. You got to change the headline, you got to do this, etc. So I know what's going on. If anyone is attacking press journalists, it's what he does to his own staff. The atmosphere in there, I know what the atmosphere is, the bullyism, etc. No press person has ever faced from us, the PPP, anything akin to what Glenn Lal does to his own staff. It's a daily dose of bullying in his own paper. And he talks about press freedom. Even when I don't want to answer the questions here, and I feel that they're personal or disparaging, at least we try to give an answer. But this one, let me read this one for you. This is an interesting one. Ghana's leading citizen, Vice President Bharrat Jagdeo, is in agony. I enjoy the. He suffers from a piercing gripe in the gut that just could not let him rest, twists him into knots. His face is grim, conveys his pain, and what gushes out of his mouth are the acids and poisons that consume him. Jagdeo says that he is about democracy, that Ghana is strong and still growing democracy. I can go on, it's really funny. When every Thursday as I prepare, I get these things and I have a good laugh before I come here. This is stupidity of what goes on there, whole day. This crazy obsession. So I can go on a lot about those, but I'm not gonna get to that too much more. Maybe I should just end there. That's a good note to end on. So, thank you. Let me take questions.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo. Danish critic for Daybreak News. Citizens, information in the media has been circulating about Venezuela's occupation of Coco, and there's not been much release or enough information spread to bring clarity to the citizens. Can you bring a little bit of clarity as to why the government is so calm as it relates to this?
So I've seen a lot of propaganda from some of the extreme supporters of the PNC. I must say it's not been so with the mainstream. Mr. Norton has taken a more balanced position on the matter. But the wild ones who hate the PPP rabidly, they've been saying that, oh, look what's happening, we're allowing Venezuela to take over Coco Island because they are building some bridge from Venezuela to their part of Coco. Remember when the award was made, the island was split in two, and we had the eastern part of the island, which they subsequently took over, I don't know, 50 years ago. So if anyone were to just read the history of Ankoko Island, you would see that Venezuela forcibly took over that whole island when they were only entitled to half of it based on the 1899 award. And that took place a long time back. So they were building this bridge to their part of the island, which is, I guess they have a right to do, but we have made it clear, and the relevant bodies have been written to, consistent with the Argyle Agreement and the provisional measures announced by the ICJ. We have notified all of the relevant partners, both of a multilateral and bilateral nature, about the continued attempts by Venezuela to build up a presence at our border in a threatening posture, and that it's inconsistent with what we agreed to, which is that we want to keep this region as a zone of peace. So we're very vigilant. We're very vigilant. We're watching the developments. We've been working with our allies on this matter, and our foremost, our primary preoccupation is the retention of our territorial integrity and sovereignty.
Dr. Jagdeo, just recently the PPP held successful, as what is touted as a successful 32nd Congress. From your experience and from what you're seeing, what is your take on the expectancy out of the opposition's Congress? And you've always had a lot to say about the oppositions and their ability to do things and manage things. Knowing what it takes to pull off a good Congress and showing people that, what is your expectancy from the PNC Congress?
So a lot has been written about our Congress recently. And maybe I should. I did not want to speak much about it because the Congress and its results and the entire atmosphere, they speak for themselves. So by any standard that you measure the success of a Congress, of a political party from, our party Congress was a resounding success. It's the biggest Congress ever held by any political party, and in substance, or the substance of the discussions matches the scale of the Congress itself. So I was tempted not to pay too much attention to the inevitable gripers. And you have those in our country. So the Kaichor News, I saw, they said, that 3,000 delegates there, and we got 75% and 77%, the president and I. Well, we had just over 2,400 delegates registered, not 3,000, but we had more than 3,000 people attending the conference because we had a lot of observers who participated fully in the Congress but could not vote. They didn't have voting rights. Only the delegates had. Some of the delegates could not make it from the hinterland and other places. who had indicated they were coming to the Congress. But we had over 3,000 persons attending the Congress, but only 2,000 registered delegate, 2,400 an odd number, I can't remember, registered delegates. So clearly they had it wrong. It's over 90% of the people who voted for us, right? Which in my case, I was happy about, because given the assault by the Kaichor News and several others who were hoping that somehow that I would fare badly there. They had a 3-month-long campaign, and over 40 articles I counted, saying people must not vote for me, I'm a bad influence for the party, etc. And considering that I've had to take tough positions in the party too to make sure that we remain a disciplined party. So I'm really pleased with the results. So that's the first thing. They had it wrong, the Kaichor News. The second issue, they had something about a guy who wrote about some lists being circulated at the Congress. Now, a number of people came to me. Some who did not do so well showed me lists that were generated after, I think, the Congress. Some said, they showed me lists that my name was not on it, your friend's name was not on some list. It doesn't matter. The thing is that people campaign in a positive way. And that's not frowned upon in the party. We don't like the list, people trying to steer people with a list. However, we don't tell people not to campaign for themselves. We tell them not to campaign and get nasty against others. And that's what I spoke to people about even before the Congress. You can campaign for yourself, but not against others. So we had a system where everyone, if you sat in the main hall, we asked all the observers to exit. We asked each person to check that the person sitting next to them had the delegate's badge. They verified that. So only the delegates remained in the room. The ballot papers were shared out in front of everyone. We had about 40 young people headed by Robeson Ben. Robeson Ben was in charge of the elections. And there were he had several teams of people. They handed out the ballots to everyone. We all sat in the same room. And people voted right there. They didn't go elsewhere and voted. If a list circulated, nobody was there with a hammer over their head to say, you vote for this person or don't vote for that person. It was open, transparently done. When they voted 35 for the Central Committee, and then another 5 candidate members. They put the ballots back in these transparent boxes. They were followed to a room that had a large number of people in it, everyone counting, because they had to count 2,400 odd ballot papers with 35 names each, and then another 2,500 400 odd ballot papers with 5 names. And so they worked through the night in an open room with everyone, and then the results were announced. Open process. So I'm very pleased what happened. And when you look at the voting, you looked at a number of people came in. We had a big turnover. So we had a lot of young people coming into the leadership of the party. We had Ryan Peters from Region 5 coming in as a candidate member. We had Sarah Brown, one of our young leaders, Amerindian leaders from Moruca, coming into the Central Committee. We had Brent Null Ashley, the regional chairman, another young leader, both they're in their 30s, coming into the leadership of the party. Minister Indira got in, Charles Ramsden got in, well, about quite a few young people. Jason Abdullah got into the Central Committee of the party. We are pleased that we have some of the older leaders in the party, and we've had an infusion of young people coming into the party, and new people, and we're very proud of that. And we had our Central Committee looks like the country too. People of every race in the Central Committee, and they feel part of it, and they were elected in an open vote in front of everyone, including you know McCoy. McCoy is in charge of the press. McCoy did extremely well, came in I think number 8 in the Congress. So no matter what we do, there are always going to be these detractors. Somebody showed me a letter of somebody who said he was at the Congress. He never was at the Congress. You know, but it's a lie, the fictitious letters that are written. So let's put that aside. Then you have another series of discussion, whole set of people, and I think it's coming from very few people. So people like Joey Jagan, he's just as confused as ever. So I'm not going to waste my time on him. One time, he doesn't know what he talks about, not only now, in the past too. So I'm not going to waste my time there. So a lot of the peeping Tom and everybody talking about Marxism, Leninism, its removal, and the democratic centralism, and all of that. And I don't want to use a press conference to engage in a debate about the relevance of Marxism, Leninism, and socialism and democratic centralism to Guyana and the PPP at this point in our history. Maybe if we had an academic forum, we can do so. And I studied in the Soviet Union, and so a significant part of the curriculum, because we did economics, so it was heavily maths focused, but a significant part of the curriculum was studying Das Kapital, the seminal work of Karl Marx and Lenin's work, etc. So I see a lot of theorists and ideologues now who profess great depth in the study of Marxism, Leninism now, writing a lot of garbage. I think they're Google Marxist-Leninists. So they Google something online. But as I said before, that's a conversation for another time and another forum, not here for the press conference. But I know that ultimately the goal of a Marxist-Leninist society is a society that does not have private capital or private ownership of anything. The state owns practically everything. And secondly, is a society or a party basically. If you're a Marxist-Leninist party, you can't believe in God. So I made it clear that the People's Progressive Party believes in, and we believe that, and the Congress, and so let me say this. Now, one or two persons may have a different view and write a letter here or there, but the ultimate guardians of this party is not Jagdeo. It's the membership of the party and the delegates of this party. And they, at the Congress of the party, they had these amendments, and they all unanimously agreed to the changes in our Constitution to remove Marxism, Leninism, and socialism. So it's a great sort of arrogance for any one person or any others to say, oh, this was my view, and my view should have prevailed. If they believe in this party and what we stand for, they would know that our Constitution says that the Congress is the highest organ of this party. And if the Congress says it wants changes in the Constitution, then that's where the changes will be made. It's not in the Kaichor News or some sour grape people or a couple of others, or people who pride themselves as great ideologues. You know, the people, the membership of the party says this. And I've never seen, for those who are talking a lot, and some here, when people join this party, because it says, I have the Constitution here, any resident of Guyana to get membership, 18 years or over, who subscribes to the aims, Constitution, and policies of the party shall be eligible for membership. I've been in this party from the 16, before that PYO, 13, I joined. I've never ever heard, when we do membership drives, anybody ask someone, are you socialist? Are you Marxist-Leninist before you join the party? We've never asked. You ask how many people who have joined this party have joined because of socialism or Marxism, Leninism. They believe that this party fought for freedom in this country, has fought for the interests of our people, is a party that seeks to bring people together across race and religion and class, and they see themselves as wanting to be part of that. Not because of some ism. And they got membership of the party. If we had to stick strictly to what was written in our Constitution, you probably have 10 persons in this party today. So, for those who talk about introducing, I see them talking about ideological plurality, and you mustn't have that. Well, the party says here that that's what we are trying in the Constitution. The old Constitution says, at this historic juncture, the PPP is committed to the establishment of a national democratic state which will embrace political and ideological pluralism. I saw one thing saying, how you can never do this. This is a contradiction. You can't have ideological pluralism in this party. But that's what we're embracing here. Cultural diversity, racial equality. This is in the old Constitution before we change it. So we could have endless theoretical. I see they resurrected Walter Rodney now, and said that Walter Rodney spoke about the relevance of Marxism, Leninism in a global context. And it was a different era when Dr. Rodney made that speech. But the key points were, this was a 19th century ideology developed by Marx in a European context. And at that time in Europe, you had many societies still organized in a feudal fashion, not even fully capitalist, for a working class movement in those countries. Now, it is basically if you were saying that we are so intellectually bankrupt that we can't, outside the context of this ideology, determine what is good for our country, our people, now, what they want, then forgive me, I can never subscribe to that. I believe that we are not so intellectually bankrupt to do that, to determine where our people want to go. And we made it clear in this party, the end point would always see people of the working people in our policy making being the target of our distribution, our wealth creation and distribution policy. We repeated that here. It's in the new constitution. That's the ideology, the working people. But we want people can have ideological plurality in the party. What if a man who is a businessman, who is capitalist, wants to be in the party? Should we shut him out? What if you, as a young person now, you want to start a business? Should we say, you can come in the party now, but when you start the business, we have to throw you out because you're capitalist? We can't have that. We'll always have ideological pluralism here in the party, but the ideological pluralism in the debates must ensure that our working class ethos remain constant. And secondly, I always envisage a PPP now and in 1 million years into the future, a party that will respect people's faith, that will allow them to be Hindus, Christians, Muslims, Rastafarians, atheists, whatever they want to, that's their belief, and still find a home in our party. Not to, at some point in our time, since we are in only a stage in our development, at some point in time, they all have to become atheists to be a member of this party. People don't look at this. They talk about it, these ideologies in abstract. But the end point basically is this. And people talk about China, oh, China has a communist party, etc. But China has taken millions of its people out of poverty. Millions, hundreds of millions of people. China has become a world superpower today because it has embraced the market mechanism. Russia today has embraced the market mechanism to wealth creation. So the ones who will, the old school politicians who will argue here constantly about the gripe and in the newspapers, or the PPP should not have removed Marxism-Leninism. Before, we should have removed it. Now we shouldn't remove it because they need to find something new to criticize the PPP. We're giving up on this working class ideology. It's utter nonsense. And secondly, we're gonna have that debate maybe at an organized forum. I'm prepared to do a debate of this nature on the theory of Marxism-Leninism and the work of Marx and Lenin, and whether it's relevant to Guyana separately. But as of now, the PPP, this political party, as defined by its membership, has said, we want a country in which you have cultural diversity. Our party is unifying race-wise. You have racial diversity within the party. We believe in freedom of the religion. We believe in ideological plurality, all of this. But our primary purpose of our policy making is to get people, working people, out of poverty into job creation, to grow their wealth. That's our objective as of now. And so they can continue with the debates as much as they want. They can continue with all of these debates. That's where we have defined our ground now. People in this party, and it's done at the right forum, not in the newspapers by anonymous writers or by others. Thank you.
Dr. Jagdeo, finally, this is a question of sensitive nature, but needs to be asked. So, as much as the Congress went off without a hitch, it's known, we got attention from CNN recently as a result of accusations being made of one of the executive members. It did not, those accusations did not come out without being noticed, the politics behind it, even in the press conference that was held by the victim. And as I said, this one is a very sensitive nature. Even the press conference were covered mostly by opposition members. Certain questions were asked, and then not only was one of the executives of the PPP accused, but at the end of that press conference, the PPP itself was brought in, made likened to Jeffrey Epstein and all these kind of things.
Really?
In light of the clarity that you bring through these press conferences and transparency, can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. I did not see, I saw little clips because I'm guilty also of, you know, sometimes surfing social media to see what's going on. So I saw clips. So I did not see the whole press conference. So I don't know what took place there and whether there was an attempt to besmirch the People's Progressive Party. But knowing some of the people who I heard were at the press conference, they're PPP haters. These are the hostile media. And so I'm not surprised that they were trying to besmirch their party. Now, this is a sensitive matter, as you correctly pointed out. And the least I speak about it, I think we can allow the course of justice to proceed in a fashion where it's not there, that people would not deem it as interference. But I do have strong views on these matters, and I choose not to express them here. Let me say that one thing, that women are respected in this party. You heard me at our Congress. I've urged in front of our full membership that we not only have more women in the party, and they're overwhelming numbers in the party, but that we make sure that they also grow into the leadership of this party. So our track record on promotion of human rights and women's rights is well known. But I believe in a fair process. It's going to be fair to the alleged victim and to Nigel Dharamlall too. Because often when you're in politics, people try to run you down too. They run you down. And I want the process that the police has embarked upon to reach its conclusion, and maybe at the end, when the findings are known to the public, then I will speak my mind on this matter. I will speak my mind on this matter.
Good afternoon, Trina Williams, Ghana Chronicle. I want to bring you to the current state of the opposition. Given the level of disunity and what seems like the absence of a consensus for a consensus candidate in the PNC, do you think that they will ever find their footing and actually be a solid opposition?
Long before they had this question of the Congress and choosing their leader, they were not a productive opposition because they chose not to represent the people of this country. Everything for them was about race. And as I pointed out, that's not a viable strategy in modern Guyana. People just are tired of it. So I don't see that happened before. So regardless of who emerges victorious at the Congress, regardless of who the leader would be, they will fall back to the same kind of rhetoric because they have no vision, they have no track record, and they're unwilling to do what it takes to reposition this party in the future. They can't do it before 2025. Nobody believes them about anything they say. How could you believe any promise they make? And look at both candidates, the front runners, talking about, oh, people are being bribed now to support the PPP or bribed not to protest. So I don't. Either way, there's no viable strategy for them to win the elections.
Naomi Paris, also from the Guyana Chronicle. My question is in relation to the UG student loan write-off. Could we possibly see the government engaging commercial banks for the student population who's currently repaying loans to banks?
Oh, okay. This is not, they didn't take the loan there from the University of Guyana. So there are different categories. So we're examining whether we can, those who paid before by taking a loan or by getting the money maybe from their parents, whether we can't assist them too. So that's currently under examination. So, and I think I'd mentioned it before, but we just wanted to get this component off. And so that is being examined carefully too.
Marcel Thomas from the Starbuck News. I'm asking 3 questions. 2 are related to your portfolio in governance, and 1 on party. I'll start with the party part. And it's on the same, I'll start with the party question.
Yes, go ahead.
Just a minute. And it's
in
on
whatever order you want, yeah, it's no problem.
And it's on the same Nigel Dharamlall issue. From the party's perspective, and as General Secretary, I want to know, how is this second rape allegation being addressed? Has the party discussed it, and what role is he currently playing? Has he been asked to stand down until the investigations are completed? What is happening from the party's perspective as it relates to this case? That's 1. Governance part now, 2. You spoke about the trade issue with Trinidad. I didn't quite get how it's working out. What type of reciprocal action are we talking about? Or is this just at the mulling stage? Like I said, I'm not quite clear on what you said because it seems kind of retaliatory from my end. It's just as if they have a measure in place, we're going to match it, that kind of thing. If you can explain that. And the third one was, on the same isms and all of that. To what extent has foreign investors or Western nations asked questions about this to the party? That's the government.
So on the ism, let's start with that. No foreign investors ever raised this, or no foreign interest has ever raised this with the party. You would recall that at previous Congresses that we've had, that this matter was raised but never went to the vote. So it's not a new issue. And by the way, Ramjatan likes to lie to say he was thrown out of this party because he tried to change this years ago. He was not thrown out for that. He had other issues that are more serious, and they involve some of his clients. But I'm not going to get into. I'm not going to get into that today. So this was driven entirely by the party. And so it has nothing to do with that. I think by now, foreign investors and Guyanese, they understand one thing about the PPP and our governments. One is that we protect people's investment. Two, our policies are predictable. That from the beginning, there have been some common things that have defined us. We invest in housing for poor people. As a result of that, this country's landscape has changed. Over 100,000 houses were being constructed in our tenure, the longer period, from the return of democracy. And for people of every class. Rich, wealthy people paid more, but they have been able to do that too. We have invested heavily in education, in healthcare, in infrastructure. We've invested in public service. So there are things that are known about us in fighting for rights. So, and we are credible. If we say we do this, we end up doing it. In this case, we believe that the stated objectives in the Constitution of building socialism is not appropriate for what we're doing now. And therefore, the membership removed it. So it was not driven by any external demand or anything of that sort. It will not change the nature of who we are. We're a working class party. We say this unashamedly. We're a working class party. We want to make sure that Amerindians who live in distant part of our countries have the same health care as people on the coast. Or whether you live in Berbice, it doesn't matter. You know, or in New Amsterdam, you have a high quality hospital there, just like you have in Georgetown. We want people to have jobs everywhere in the country. We want them housing development so they can grow out of poverty. We want them to get more qualified so they can make more money and they can accumulate wealth at the household level too. They can earn more, they can build nicer houses, have vehicles, do whatever, have recreation. That's what we want. So that's not going to change. Nothing that you see this changing a couple of words in our Constitution, not going to change who we are. We believe in freedom. Freedom to associate, freedom to practice your faith, and still be part of this party. So it's not driven by foreign investors. So there are only 3 positions in the party that we have appointed now. It is the General Secretary, the Executive Secretary, and the Finance Secretary from the Central Committee. There's nothing to step down from. So those are the 3 positions at this point in time that we have until the next Central Committee where we'll appoint additional secretaries. Also on this matter is an accusation now. It's an allegation. It's before the competent authorities to investigate fully, and then a determination will be made on the basis of that investigation. So as like in the first set of allegations. We did not jump the gun as a party or a government. We said, let the laws be applied uniformly to everyone. And in this case, it's being done. So I don't see any need to do that. Nigel Dharamlall was elected by the membership. So that is a different matter. The trade issue, so reciprocity means we don't want to get into a tit-for-tat fight with Trinidad and Tobago. As I said before, we have a good trade relationship, and I've seen a statement out of Trinidad and Tobago that they are trying to address the matter. We hope that the matter is addressed through the means, the mechanisms that are available. However, if any country, I did not speak specifically about Trinidad and Tobago, I said any country believes that it could treat our goods unfairly when it enters their market, or even prevent our goods from entering their market whilst having a free access to our market, then they would have to have a second think about the matter, because we are going to ensure that we examine everything and there'd be reciprocity. So it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to put in a repressive phytosanitary regime, but we'd ensure that on the balance of things, that you can't have unimpeded access into our markets, and then we'll tolerate restricted access into your market. We're just sending that signal, and I hope that it goes out clearly.
Brings me to the follow-up. I wanted that. Why not go to the CCJ as is, so that the matter is clarified?
No,
so
but the company has already indicated that it's prepared to go all the way. So they are the aggrieved party. They can go to the CCJ. You'd recall that when Rudisa complained, yes, the Surinamese company, they went to the beverage company. They claimed that the environmental fee, it wasn't a tax. I thought the CCJ made an erroneous ruling on that matter, because it was a fee, it wasn't a tax. And that if you, once you brought back the bottles, you could have collected back your money. So if you bring back the plastic bottles, you can collect the money. So it's not really a tax, it's a fee, a deposit basically. But I don't know how we presented the case. And we lost that case. I think it was maybe how the case was presented from our side. Because at CARICOM, when I was president, I successfully argued for nearly 10 years that it was a fee. That if they wanted, just bring back the bottles and you collect back the deposit. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo, and that's Williams Kaiser News. Sir, in light of ExxonMobil further ramping up production, we would like to know, can you say whether the EPA is fully equipped to determine if, by looking at whatever documents that they would have submitted, if they submit any, can you say if the EPA is fully equipped to determine whether this is being safely done? And if not, have they reached out to international experts to contract them to have their assistance in this?
So last week I dealt with that issue, and I said that my briefing is that before they ramped up production beyond rated capacity, that this was cleared with the ministry. The ministry assured me their technical officers examined it. I spoke with the EPA. They said they had examined it carefully too, so they were aware, and it was done with their approval. Both agencies, the Ministry of Natural Resources and the EPA, and they believe it was done and it's safe.
Secondly, sir, can you say if Ghana, with the country, would have already established a decommissioning fund?
You know what the PSA says. So why are you asking me that again? How would we?
The ongoing projects.
Yes. So under the new license, you have a copy of that license. It's published. We've published all the licenses because I saw in a particular statement the Kaicho News said here that these things are not available in the public. So, but the license is out. There's a particular approach to how we deal with the decommissioning funds now that the new law, under the auspices of the new law, the Natural Resources Fund, not the Natural Resources Fund, the new Petroleum Activities Act. And therefore, it's clear how we are approaching this matter. So why you're asking me about establishing the fund already? It's clear what it says there. Please look at it again.
In your post, taking you a little back to Congress, in your post-Congress press conference, you would have made mention of some recommendations in relation to the economic and social sectors. Can you please shed some light on these?
What? Agree?
Yep. No, in your post-Congress press conferences, you said that there were some recommendations that would have been made in relation to the economic and social sectors. Can you please shed some further light on this?
Okay, so it's a whole series of stuff. So what people focus a lot on, ensuring that so we had presentations done in the different sectors. They spoke more about like job creation activities and what could be done. For example, we were talking to the group from Region 1. So Region 1 now, we had promised to upgrade their ability to access planting material. They want suckers, they want a number of things. Consistent with that, we started working on moving nurseries, bigger nurseries, etc., into these regions for planting material. But many of the people were not aware of this. So they made suggestions, how are we going to get planting material in the region? So we spoke of this, and then we explained. They said, okay, so if we plant more, what's going to happen with our crops? So another element of what we had planned for Region 1 was to be developing port facilities there and processing facilities so we can export directly into the Caribbean rather than bring the goods to the coast. Because a lot of the goods that they produce there, say cassava, and to process cassava and to export it or plant it, they're produced on the coast too. We have had in Region 3 alone, in the last crop, over 2 million pounds of cassava produced in Region 3 alone. So if you bring the cassava from elsewhere, you can't compete. You have to move it long distances. So the processing facility. So they were concerned about the localized, like people coming from there, more localized initiatives that would spread the prosperity and support like their regions in moving things forward. So there were good suggestions about what we can do. They complained like on the boat. They said that on the boat, some of our Amerindian comrades said they felt that some people were bullying them. And we are looking into this seriously to look at, because people should not be bullied to get space on this boat and stuff like that. So so those kinds of things were good feedback from the area. In Region 9, we explained that with all of the developments in the region, with the bridge, the road, etc., let him now, we're examining a proposal now to build a full-fledged international hotel inlet him, and a hotel, a runway, so that the larger aircrafts can land there. And then the processing facilities there to reprocess goods from Brazil to ship into CARICOM, because they can qualify, like the meats and everything else. They would change the tariff head, so you qualify, the value added would be great, so we can qualify for entering the CARICOM market free of tariff. And that, and a couple of hotels being built there, etc., which would be a huge growth pole for the entire Region 9. So these are the kinds of things in a very practical sense. In people from Berbice, we talk about sugar, and we talk about other economic opportunities, and we also talk about hemp. Some of our comrades from Region 10 spoke of hemp and how hemp can assist. So it was like not so much on the macro policies, but how we can support, because we had people from all 10 regions, how we can support economic initiatives in those areas. It was good to get a feedback on the functioning of the government system, so the health clinics. Some people said, we have health clinics here, but they don't function at optimal, a good feedback mechanism. And so those are just some of the ideas that came up. But there were large number of ideas coming from our base about how to improve people's lives in these areas. Yeah. Yes, myself. Yes, go.
And it's clarity on the same Dharamlall issue again. You said that the other positions are going to be chosen until the Central Committee meets again. Mm-hmm. Will that meeting pend the ending of this probe?
No. Our meeting is not going to, our meeting has nothing to do with the probe. The police probe is an independent probe. That has nothing to do with party business. That has nothing to do with party business. So, party business, as soon as I'm ready for the next meeting, because it's not just that, the appointment of the other secretaries. I have to present a full report from the Central Committee not from the Central Committee, from the Congress to the Central Committee, outlining a number of things. I have to set up a body to start working on the party's program. Our last program was adopted in 1979 and amended in the early 2000s. We have accomplished all of our programs. I don't hear people talk about the program of the party. The program has nothing to do with socialism. That is what we agreed in 1979 to do, to implement. And we have practically, completed this program. And therefore, we have to set up the body to start working on a new program for the next 20 years for the party. That would outline our key objectives, what we want to achieve in the next 20 years. The Congress has now given us approval to take this to county conferences within a year and have those approved as the new program for the party. So we'll outline the key objectives that we want any government that run by or that is formed by the PPP to outline these programs. So it has what we want on housing, what we want on water, or everything. We're a serious party. We guide the governments as to what objectives we want to achieve, and those objectives are the ones that we campaign on as a party. So we have to ensure that the government fulfills what we campaign on.
Is Mr. Dharamlall free then to accept nominations or positions?
Yeah, that's preempting. That's preempting the discussions that we may have.
at those?
Yeah, we may
You
have.
mean?
So I don't want to speculate now. I don't want to speculate on that matter. Thank you.